Welcome to the Fuelies.net interview with Carl Bell. My name is Kristen Kissinger, and I'm sitting here on the phone right now with the founder, songwriter, lead guitarist, and backup vocalist for the band. How are you doing today, Carl?
I'm good. That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah, you're responsible for a lot of stuff that goes on with that band.
I apologize.
Why are you apologizing?
I'm just kidding.
All right, so I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, if that's okay with you.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I know, it's going to be one of those. So from what I've gathered from reading things over the past, decade or so, it seems like the main influences that have pushed you in your direction were the fact that you grew up without a TV, your brother's record collection that he won from the radio station, and the fact that Jeff was born a year after you, right in the same two-stoplight town. If there was anything different about that, do you think that something would have been different in your future?
Well, I mean, that's hard to say. Really, it is what it is, and that's about all you can say about it, because anything that could have changed the course of everything, So, the fact that, like you said, I did grow up without TV, and I listened to a lot of music, and, even on to the fact that we moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or that I met Jody Abbott at college, or, our first drummer at college. Anything you change could have changed everything. So it's really weird for me. I think it's very easy for someone, once you're at a certain point, to look back and reconstruct it in the way that it all makes sense. Go, oh, well, this happened because of this and this and this, because that's where you are. But, whether or not, that's truly the case, I'm never sure, But, yeah, sometimes I can look back now and with the old cliche of, all that happened for a reason and blah, blah, blah. But, I'm not sure if I totally believe that, but it is what it is, and this is where we are, right?
Right. Was there ever a defining moment where you're like, oh, this is definitely what I want to do. I want to work on music?
When I was a kid, I got my brother, I found my brother's guitar because he had tried to play it and he had no luck at it, and I found it and I started playing it. I picked it up pretty quick. And then I started playing piano a little bit. I remember I learned this song by Elton John, I think it's called We All Fall in Love Sometimes or something like that, off of Captain Fantastic, which is one of my favorite records. And I learned the whole thing on piano, and my brother was just amazed. He's like, I can't do that. How can you do that? And I thought at that moment, I remember going, well, hey, maybe I've got, this is a little niche for me, and this is cool, you know what I mean? Because, when you're just a kid, you're looking for anything to kind of, figure yourself out with. So it was cool. That was probably one thing. And my brother, I have to owe so much to my older brother because he's such a music lover and fan and, just infused all that into me. And so I have to give a whole lot to him.
That's awesome. So when you started playing guitar with Jeff, there's something on the CD extras section of the Sunburn CD where Jeff jokes that you kind of tricked him into playing bass. He said that you were like, oh, the bass is cool, man. The bass is cool. Did it really happen like that, or was he just messing around?
I don't know if I tricked him into it, but we needed a bass player. That's what we really needed because we had no bass. And we're growing up in a tiny little town where he was like, that was it. We had either that or we wasn't going to have a band or even be able to play music. So we did have a discussion, I remember, and I was like, hey, play bass, man, whatever. We need something, you know what I mean? Because I think at that time, I'd been playing guitar for a year, and he'd only been playing for a little while, and so at that time we were, both of us were still hacks, but at least I was a hack ahead of him, so.
Right.
So anyway, it did kind of go down that way a little bit. I don't think it was a tricked situation. Though. It was just like, hey,
is this the way he presented it on the DVD?
This is what we need,
Right.
Yeah, he may have a different story, but anyway.
We know your side of the story. That's all that matters.
Okay, you're right.
So you mentioned, obviously, we know about Jeff, and you mentioned Jody. How many members of the band were there before we kind of got the group of 4 guys that we came across? How many people did you go through before you got Brett and then eventually Kevin?
Well, you got to know, I'm coming from a really, really small town, and I never thought that playing music, that was even a viable option. My dad worked in a factory, and, you either went to college or you went to the factory, and you really didn't have, I didn't have a broad view of the world like, I can actually go play music, and I could maybe make that happen. It just never was on my radar. So when we first started, we were playing anything we could find to play, anywhere we could play, get band members, do anything we could to make some money at it so we could sustain it. So we had tons of members, lots of, different singers, all kinds of members throughout the, incarnations of the band until finally I started getting okay, wait, we were playing cover songs and this and that in the beginning, just as every band does, and or most bands anyway. And I started going, we need to write. I can't just, I don't want to be a cover band all my life. Let's get on with it. So, but in those cover bands and all the stuff back in the day, yeah, we had tons of members, and I don't even know, keyboard players and you name it.
So a lot of people then.
Yes, a lot. I'm still in contact with some of them, too, though. It's kind of cool.
Really? That's awesome. So as the group of people, obviously before Kevin, because he got hired while you guys were recording the Sunburn CD, as the original three guys, you did a lot of work after you moved to Harrisburg. You managed to sell 10,000 copies of Porcelain out of the back of your car. You got radio stations locally to play Shimmer, and you obviously booked tons and tons of tour dates in the surrounding cities. So without getting you into too much trouble here, can you kind of talk about how that compares with the way you feel the label's been supporting you throughout your entire career? I don't want to get you in trouble or anything. I'm just kind of curious.
I don't think there is any trouble anymore because it's pretty dismal at the label right now. It's different when it's your own industry. It's like a little cottage industry that you're running, and it's life or death. Obviously you pour everything into it, and that's what we were doing. With a label, it's not life or death. Most any of the companies, it's not life or death for those guys. They've got a huge roster. They've got, tons of bands, and, hopefully one of them will catch. And they have a set formula for, if we put X amount of money into this, we feel it will sell this amount of product, as they say. And if that formula is off, then you just don't get love. It's pretty simple. I mean, a record label could be selling automobile tires or doorknobs or, floor mats. Anymore, the way I feel about it, there is no artist, there is no anything about the music. There's no love, there's no passion for the music, really, other than the fact that it can make me money. And that's pretty much it. And I think, maybe back in the 70s and 80s, it maybe been a little different and people had a little more passion about what was happening. But nowadays, it's all about the bottom line, at least in my experience. And you have a few key people at the label that love what you're doing and are passionate about it. But for me, I think, once you get on up into the upper ranks, up into the heads of all the companies, it's about product. They've got to answer to their people, and they just want to sell, and it doesn't matter. And you know what I mean? I think that's unfortunate, but it's kind of probably the nature of the beast. So as far as that goes, is comparing a record label to what we did, it's a different thing. You understand? It was life or death for us. For them, it's just another band in the roster, and let's hope it happens. And if it doesn't, we'll move on to the next one because there's 1,000 bands behind them that we can try.
Which is such a shame. It always seems like a catch-22 kind of situation where we're going to promote you more if you do well, and if you don't do well, then we're not going to. But obviously, you need someone to promote you so you can do well. It just seems like it's a real mixed-up situation.
It's a vicious circle. It is, yeah, and it's hard to. If the record label tells me, Carl, the record sucks, go write another one, I can do that. But I can't make a record label get behind me and basically give me love. I can't do that. Just like a relationship with, a man and woman. You can't make that person love you if they don't. And that's pretty much all you can do. So that's the hardest part for me is if I feel like, I'm not getting love from certain people and I'm trying to do everything I can to make it happen and it still doesn't work. That's so frustrating because, I can't get beyond that. So that's tough.
Yeah. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about songwriting because screw record labels, screw everything. When it gets down to it, that's really all that matters, right?
We would like to think so.
I would like to think so.
In a perfect world, yes.
So you've been at this for a long time, and when you look at the catalog that we've been allowed to see anyway, and you look at things from back as far as 94 all the way up to now in 2007, it looks like your inspirations have kind of changed. You used to write a lot about faith and soul searching, and it's kind of changing into, we're talking about relationship. Exactly how personal are you in your songwriting? Could we kind of map out things that have been going on with you according to when you've written songs?
I totally can. It's really weird for me because I can look, and you have to remember too, not all the songs, like for this last record, when I look back at this last record, people go, wow, it's a lot about relationship stuff, and I'm like, ooh, it is, you know what I mean? Because there are other songs that had a lot more stuff to them, but they just didn't make the cut. And it seemed like out of this last record, the most of the songs that made it were kind of relationship-based, which I should have been watching a little more. But anyway.
Right.
But songs are very, very, personal to me. I mean, they really timestamp a lot of, the headspace you were in at that time for me. Like, I can definitely look at the first record and remember the headspace I was in there. And, oh, yeah, I wrote that because of this. And I remember writing that song in this apartment at this time. And I remember writing that song in my car driving to, wherever. It's really, it's really personal to me, and the content as well, obviously. So I can look at, first record. In fact, first record, I've always said, if I'd have known it was going to be, sell 1 million copies, I might have wrote a different record because it's a little too open,
Really?
There's a little too close to the bone there for some things for me. But I think that maybe was the appeal as well.
I was going to say that. That's definitely the reason I think it actually ended up selling so many, was because people made connections with it, and I think that's really important.
Right, absolutely. So, yeah, a lot of it's very important. I mean, there's definitely even today, there's songs on this new record, that are about specific people, about specific places, about specific incidences. So, yeah, it's real personal to me.
You have a lot of recurrent themes in your songs. I don't know if you kind of look back and notice that, but you tend to talk about scars a lot, or angels. Is there any particular reason you kind of lean on these words?
I've noticed that too. I think it's part of I'm going to have to work on that as well, I think, because I have noticed the scars thing come up. But I mean, I think it's just such a powerful metaphor as far as a wound that is healed, and you're trying to move forward, and that's just to me, it's my human experiences as there's stuff that you've trying to move forward beyond, but you don't ever forget what gave you that scar or why you're trying to move beyond it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I've noticed there are a few things that I notice now that I look back, because it's you kind of have a unique perspective now of looking back over 4 records now, and you kind of go, oh yeah, I see this and I see that, and it's a little disturbing to me. I'm gonna have to work on that.
Here's a bit of a question. Who is Mary? Is that just a name that you use? Because the name's popped up a couple times, obviously, in Mary Pretends and Sister Mary Innocent. Is it just a name that you use as a substitute?
Well, definitely a substitute. But it's I think it probably has the religious connotations to it as well, where that for me kind of gives it extra weight. I mean, I grew up in Tennessee, and in the buckle of the Bible Belt, so I was in church all my life. I went to church, twice on Sunday and on Wednesday night, and never missed, what I mean, because my family was that way. So, there's a lot of religious stuff that I think comes into it because of that.
Dude, I went to Catholic school for 12 years, and I don't know how you went to church twice on Sunday.
I went twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday every day of every week of my life, and I did that till 22 probably even, you know what I mean, to work. Probably not 22, but 18 or so until I was out of the house or on my way, you know what I mean? So.
Well, I have to hand that to you, because I couldn't even manage sitting there in class and just...
You know what? It's kind of respect to my parents and stuff as well, too. Even when I go home now, I'll go, because my parents are great and they're fantastic, and I'd rather do that than not and have them have to deal with it. So it's mostly out of respect now, for sure.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Elton John earlier, which is funny because I was planning on bringing him up. It seems like there are references to a lot of other artists in your music. Generally, one Elton John reference per album. And for instance, in Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, kind of pops up in Sunburn, and Funeral for a Friend comes up in Hemorrhage, and Sorry seems to be the hardest word in these things. Is that intentional, or is it just kind of paying homage? How does that work?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of funny that you see. I mean, obviously there's a general metaphors that work. I don't know. You made connections there that I was like, wow, okay, well, maybe, maybe those are connections. But if you want, I will take it though, because I think early Elton John, not the later stuff, his life has changed as well. And even he has said, that he can't write those records that he used to write either. It was just those moments, and he's attested to that fact. But I mean, the early Elton John records were stunning, you know what I mean, for me, and it was some of the stuff that I grew up with as a kid that my brother, turned me on to. Bernie Taupin as the lyricist of that duo there was just, I think, some of the greatest lyrics that have been written for me as far, and musically Elton, just had it really going on, so I'm a huge fan of that stuff, lyrics and music. And I think a lot of the bigger influence maybe even is the strings, like you would say, like on Hemorrhage, because the old master arrangements that they used on those Elton John records were just amazing. And that, I think, is kind of even a bigger influence, maybe even than lyrics. But I appreciate it because I will bow to that because I am a huge fan.
How much writing do you do exactly? Will songs like The Perfect Blue Sky or Bathsheba's Bed ever see the light of day, or do you just kind of bury those away and we're never going to hear
How do you
them.
know about? Oh, you saw the sheets for Perfect Blue Skies.
Yeah, and we're Fuelies and we're stalkers. I mean, this is for the website. We've gone onto BMG and, oh, look at this song. We've never heard that one. You know how we work.
Tons. There's lots of stuff that hasn't been released. Some for obvious reasons. Others that just. I think this one of the. Actually, our producer fought for this song called Perfect Blue Skies to be on the record. He really, really wanted it on there. It just kind of got voted out because we kind of had too much slow material and wanted to kind of pick it up a little more. But there's a lot of songs. I don't know. I have to decide what to do with a lot of the stuff because I usually write 40 songs maybe for every record, and they'll be complete too. I'm talking as I write, I do drums, bass, vocals, harmonies, effects. I mean, the songs really don't change that much from when they go into the studio, except for just recorded a lot better. But for the most part, 90% of the vibe and effects and everything that I'm going to do is already there on my demos. So I've got lots of demos that are done. So I don't know. I have to figure out what to do with those. I'm not exactly sure. And some of them may pop up on, records in forthcoming.
That would be awesome. What's your favorite song you've ever written?
That's tough too. A lot of people hate their singles, but Hemorrhage I think was a good song for me that I feel good about. It has that nice epic feel. It has the strings that I love. The lyrics I think turned out well. It's one of those songs that kind of wrote itself. Those are the ones that you wait for. A song called Solace that I like, which I think Solace kind of was a definite timestamp.
That's one of my favorites, yeah.
That moment where I was. I mean, lyrically, I think that one, for me personally, you know what I mean, it has special meaning to me. I don't know. I mean, there's, Again on this record was good. I thought I like it. Angels Take a Soul is an interesting song for me. So, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, and in some songs, like, actually, Bad Day, not my favorite, you know what I mean?
Really?
Although I remember exactly where I was when I wrote that song, but that's kind of a song that the label heard and kind of attached to. And for me, it's kind of been like, the orphan child of the whole pack because it never sounded like the other songs to me. But I used to not play it that much, but we play it now and everybody sings it, and I just go, wow, people like this song? Okay, let's go. So it's kind of funny for me.
What's funny with that one was that there was a lot of people talking that song up before any of us heard it. The people who had known you before you got signed to Sony in 1997 who'd heard that song, when they found out you were putting it on something like Human, all of a sudden these people who'd been fans for longer than those of us that were introduced to you with Shimmer, they were totally talking up Bad Day. Oh, you're going to love the song. And so that was always coming with a lot of prep for us.
Oh, wow. Well, Bad Day, it's the whole 9/11, clipped that.
Right.
Progress of that song. I mean, it got on that blacklist, and I've always thought that, had 9/11 not happened, and, obviously, it would have had a lot better life. But that song wasn't that big as far as radio play, because it never got there because it got, blacklisted, but people still know it. So
it was your best music video.
Oh, my God, don't even talk about videos. I've hated all our videos,
really?
Detested all of them, so it's unbelievable. I don't know how, people like Gwen Stefani, who obviously works on a bigger budget than we do, but still, you still got to make it happen. And she consistently, every time, has great videos, whereas us, we couldn't get a good video if we had to, so it's just really weird for me. But
I just want you to know I'm giving you 5 stars for the day because you brought up Gwen Stefani, and I'm slightly obsessed with her, so...
Slightly obsessed.
Slightly.
You know what? The cool thing about Gwen Stefani for me is she writes a lot of her own, writes her stuff, sings it, performs it. She's She's the real deal. You know what I mean? You got to give it to her. So, I mean, obviously now she's using a lot of Timbaland and other producers and stuff as that. But she wrote a lot of stuff in the beginning, and she's still writing a lot now. And you got to give it to her. It's like the real deal. It's not some fabricated garbage that most of it is out there.
Right. Absolutely. And No Doubt has laid down all of the instrumentals for their next album, and she's supposed to go in there after Christmas and lay down vocals, so that should be good.
Good. So they're doing another No Doubt record.
They are, yeah, and it should be out late 2008. It's going to be good.
See, even that, once again, you just got to go, great. I love this girl, you know what I mean? It's great, because she still does that, and you know what I mean? I don't know. She I don't know.
And she's gorgeous. I mean, let's just throw that out there, too.
She's got the package, right? She's got the whole thing. It's really cool.
She does.
So, and she even goes back and does a No Doubt record when she knows she doesn't have to. But, it's cool. She just, I don't know. I just admire what she does.
So let's get this back to you, because we all have another tangent there. No, please. I am not going to yell at you for talking about Gwen Stefani, but I think the people on the board might be mad at me about it. They're like, Kristen, come on. Everybody knows. Anyway, so we know that you're 95% responsible for the content on the albums, and I have to go on record saying this. We've all heard Rocket Man, you singing, obviously, and playing guitar, and we love it and dig it, and we love the acoustic stuff, and you guys bust out the acoustic guitars. And for the record, just so that no one gets mad at me for not telling you when I have the opportunity, we would love to hear you do something solo, even if it's like a 4 or 5 song EP. If at any point you consider doing that, I think that would make a lot of people's days.
I mean, obviously been considering it a lot. I have to kind of put it together and see what's going on with everything. But yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. That's really, really cool. I appreciate it. And I've thought about it, so I'll have to see what's going on with me. I mean, as far as I think it always has been, for me writing and then having someone else sing it. I mean, although it's the Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey kind of scenario. It's not completely foreign to rock and roll, but there is something about it that I go, I mean, it's less fulfilling than I wish it was when I have somebody else sing it, So, but I mean, obviously there's songs that I can't sing that Torn can sing, and Torn can sing just about anything. It's really, I'm super jealous of his voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, man, how can that come out of his voice? It's so great, you know what I mean? So that's something that I love. But I think, yeah, I'm looking for it. I'm looking to do something maybe, and we'll see what the future brings with that.
That would be awesome. You've always been kind of protective of the role of songwriter, but however, you have also said that you can't do it alone. Obviously, you need people that you feel can sing certain songs better than you feel you might be able to. But apparently, and I'm sorry I have to bring this up, former members of the band have not shared that vibe from you. Do you think that possibly that played a role in arguments and departures?
It definitely. This is a scenario. If any of those guys had a hit song or had a song for any of the records, why didn't they bring them out? Mm-hmm. That was my thing. If you got our next hit single that's going to sell us bazillions of copies, and you're not bringing it out, why not? Because if you play it for Sony not going to put out a song because I didn't write it? You know what I mean? They're going to go, oh, well, we love that song, Brett or Jeff or Kevin or whoever's in the band. That's a huge hit, but Carl didn't write it, so we can't put it on the record. I mean, are you kidding me?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If they had the hits, then where were they? Or if they had all the songs, I would come to the record with 40 songs. Brett would come with 2 songs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I can't help that they didn't write more songs. And I've never really been protective of the songwriting. I mean, you said that I've always protected the songwriting. It's never been a thing for me at all. It's just I would bring 40 songs to a record and they would bring 2. You can't have a record with 2, songs. So that was how it would go. I wrote songs with Brett some, but Brett also, for me, Brett in particular, Brett wanted it to be fun, and he wanted to have a good time with it, which is great, and that's part of it, but it's also a lot of work. And when we would get stumped on something, he would just kind of give up and do it, go on his way or something. And I'm like, well, you just don't get songs written that way. So, I mean, for me, it's like, if Sony had heard a hit or had any, or they had brought any more songs to the record, they would have got more songs on the record. I just want to have fun and have success, you know what I mean? So
mm-hmm.
I was never... never been the Nazi, nobody else gets songs on the record because it's ridiculous,
Right.
I couldn't do that. First of all, I can't do that. I have a management company that represents all of us. If they represent me and favor one of those, favoritism to me over the other guys, they get in trouble. They're going to get in serious. They're going to get lawsuits. You know what I mean? So it's never been that way. And I talk to those guys like, write. All you got to do, then write more songs. You know what I mean? Don't come, if you have a complaint, then you're not working hard enough or something. You know what I mean? So I can't stop you from writing. And if you have the next hit in your back pocket, let's hear it. So
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, I get emotional about that. And again, it gets, because I kind of get tired of feeling like the bad guy for writing the songs. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. That's why I wanted to bring that up so that you had the opportunity to kind of clear the air a bit, because I don't think we've ever actually heard anything specifically from you in an interview or a statement, because I think people kind of try to stay away from that topic. But I mean, obviously other people have brought it up, so I definitely wanted to hear what you had to say about it.
Right. Well, and it does get to me because I'm like, we would go to New York back in the day when we were on tour. We'd go into New York City. There'd be 3 days off. They'd be like, dude, let's go. Let's go run around New York. Come on, Carl, let's go. And I'd be like, I can't. And what are you going to do? I'm going to my room and I'm going to write. And I would do that, and they know that I did that, and I did that all the time. And when we were in Harrisburg, Jeff came to my apartment one time and, drugged me out, was laughing at me, drugged me out of the apartment, threw me in the shower and like, let's go out, man, you're going out. You've been working too hard. And I'm like, okay, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But, they know that this went down. That's all I did. That's all I mean, I don't write as much as I used to probably because it's a different time. But, I was writing all the time and working all the time trying to make it happen. And they know I've done that. So if they had a problem with me writing songs, they should have been staying home and they're using their time to write songs. That's, you know what I mean? So I really get upset when I feel like a bad guy for writing songs that gave us a career, So that's the way I feel about it.
Have any of them contacted you since they left?
I have no hard feelings towards any of them. You know what I mean? I mean, we fired Kevin, obviously, and that was, a situation. Though I really, I miss Kevin in a lot of ways. That's kind of like, we're in different circles now. You don't really, have that much contact. So
really
doing different things and doing we're doing our own things. I'm doing this. Brett's doing the, Riders on the Storm situation. So it's not like we have, we just don't have a lot of contact, just because we're just running in different circles. I have nothing against them. I talk to them, whatever they want to do, but.
I think you've done a pretty awesome job of soldiering on, and I think there are a lot of people who would agree with me. But was there ever a moment when you were kind of freaking out and thinking that this was it, that you weren't going to be able to pick up the pieces and move on?
Oh, sure. I mean, we did a lot of debate on whether or not even to persevere even, Do we carry on the name? Do we carry on but maybe change the name or what? But I think the end of it, Jeff and I were just kind of going, you know what, we put too much time and energy into this to walk away from it and to try to start from, fresh from the ground floor and start building again is it's kind of silly to give up what we've already established. So we decided to, just try to keep it going. So, yeah, but there was times when, is it going to happen? Should we even do this? I mean, all those thoughts go through your head for sure.
What about a peak of your career? Just to kind of, get back on a high point here. What was the best part of your career so far?
The best part?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think, although it wasn't a headline tour, I mean, the tours with Aerosmith were just amazing, you know what I mean? I still get a lot of people, I think more people than anybody else we ever toured with, come up to me and say, I saw you with Aerosmith and I became a fan. It was Aerosmith, somebody I've looked up to and held in high regard all my life. And I was like, wow, we're on tour with these guys and, watch them play every night. That was fun tours. And that was probably, kind of in the top of our game right then at the time, too. So, with the peak of hemorrhage and everything was happening then. So, it was pretty cool days then. I mean, definitely, I could look around and go, wow, I'm definitely further than I ever thought we would ever get, at that point. So, they were fun times, and, everything was, it's always easier when you're having success and things are happening and, everybody's happy and it's just, it goes that way. So it was just a good time for everybody.
What about the future of the band? Where do you anticipate or kind of hope that things lead to from here?
I really don't know. I mean, I know right now we're, with Epic, it's not the best scenario with Epic at all. I don't know what, we're going to have a whole meeting here in the next couple of days as well with management and everybody and just try to sit down and lay out a game plan for the future here because I don't know what's going to happen with all that. I mean, I think, I can't say too much about everything, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff we have to figure out because this has been, the Epic relationship now is not as healthy as it used to be. I lost a lot of good guys that I used to know there that, I still have some great guys that are still there, but, once again, you got to have it coming from the top down, and they've got, people they have to answer to, so they can't, just go completely on their own and do it like they wish they could do it. They have directives that they have to follow, so I don't know. I really don't know what to do next. I mean, I like what's going on right now, and I think with Torn, it's great. I just really don't know what the future holds for us right now, and I think we'll have to decide that coming up, so.
What about for yourself? You talked about maybe possibly thinking about doing some solo stuff, but what about other possibilities, collaborating with other writers? Have you just thought about what you might do if this phase of your career comes to an end?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I have, at least with Fuel coming to an end. I have to, that scares me. So, I mean, Fuel has always been a great outlet for me personally, and obviously all the work on the, I've done, so much work on to try to make it successful. And I'm definitely not hanging up Fuel for sure. I just don't know what. I think we're going to have to try to find, what's going on with us and how to make this happen. Because I'm definitely not saying this is the end of us for sure. You know what I mean? In fact, I think it's probably it's a better place than we've ever been as far as being able to do what we do. It's just a weird climate out there for music right now. Rock is in a weird space. Our label's in a weird space. Everything's in a weird space right now. So if I would probably say more likely than not, as far as Fuel goes, we would probably try to get another deal or something, depending on what Sony wants to do. I mean, a lot of it's depending on that. So, but I definitely want to keep making records with Fuel and keep that going. As far as myself, I'm looking to do that too. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's once again, it kind of falls back into a weird climate, and it's hard for rock more than ever right now. And I just don't know. I mean, I've got a lot of guys, a lot of bands that I talk to just go, man, we can't make this work anymore, So it's a struggle.
So I just have a couple more questions here. And because this is for the fan site, and speaking as a fan, a couple of them have asked me to ask you this. How often do you get over the boards? And does some of the stuff that we talk about over there kind of freak you guys out?
Oh, I check them out a lot. I check them out a lot because I think it's interesting. And sometimes it's frustrating because something happens, something happens on the board and people start talking and you're like, or you'll see somebody post something and they obviously they're just, talking smack or whatever and they don't know what they're talking about and you kind of go, shut up, you know what I mean? But for the most part, I think it's great, you know what I mean? It's most of the stuff that's on there is pretty funny.
We talk about the Jello wrestling joking doesn't freak you out or anything like that because people joke about that kind of a lot.
What am I supposed to say? Stop talking about that. You know what I mean? I can't really go on and say anything that's going to affect anybody anyway. So, I mean, I think it's all funny. It's all good. It's all, for the most part, I think, the Fuelies page has always been good-natured and a good emotional kind of message board. Not, some of the boards used to get kind of crazy and you kind of go, wow, you know what I mean? And
we didn't even bother with the official one anymore. That place is a mess.
I never understood why people, if you don't like a band or you don't want to say something, I mean, if you used to be a fan and now you're not, and now you're, and you want to go on and just kind of say something and then leave, maybe, but to take time out of your day to go on and post something in a negative way on a fan site, I don't get it, right? I mean, I don't go posting like, if I don't like Barry Manilow, I'm not on his site. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm not beating up Barry Manilow on his site. I've never really understood that, but I think it's kind of, and for me, I get a laugh out of it when I see people posting negative stuff on there, and I'm just like, you don't have enough life of your own that you actually have to go on somebody's site and post negative stuff. I never understood that. But anyway, it is what it is, and people are people, and you're never going to change it. So, the sites are great. I enjoy it. I check out Fuelies a lot, and I try to post as much as I can and work with it as much as I can. And people say I do a good job at it, and I feel like I really don't because I'm not on there enough, and I feel like I should do a whole lot more. But I think it's great.
You know what? In comparison to a lot of other artists, we have considered ourselves very lucky because a lot of people never even get to talk to the people that they admire and the music they listen to all the time ever. So we really appreciate the fact that you come on, and I definitely think that you give us way more than we could possibly ask for, considering how busy you are.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just weird for me because I mean I don't know. I don't feel like I do that enough. You know what I mean? So wow. Well, that's why I hear. That's what I'm saying. I hear and I check out other people's websites and I see that they never post, and I'm like whatever. And some people work that. You know what I mean? That's kind of like if you're Perfect Circle or Tool. I don't know. I haven't been on their websites, but that kind of keeping the curtain closed and keeping the mystery as part of their shtick. You know what I mean? So, but for me, I don't know. This is not my personality. I'm never going to be like the coolest guy in the room kind of vibe and try to give that off because I just. It's not me, so.
Well, one of the other things you've been really open about and passionate about is that you don't really understand people's obsession with celebrity cultures and everything. And I don't really understand the attraction to actresses or things like that either. But as a musician, your music has definitely affected people's lives. I know I've heard several accounts of people saying that it has gone as far as to save their lives. Obviously, with the message board you've created, tons of friendships, even some marriages have come out of people who've met on that boards. How does that make you feel? I'm sure that this probably wasn't something you were anticipating when you were, sitting home in Tennessee and writing these songs. You weren't thinking someday you were going to be creating all these connections between people.
Well, I think it always, when I listen to other people's music, and there's certain music that it moves you, and you go, wow, that's awesome, and you'll listen to it a million times and all that kind of stuff. And it seems to always, I can apply it to myself regarding other artists, but I can't. It's hard to apply it to yourself because it's like, I wrote that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just me. I just wrote that, you know what I mean? It's kind of like seeing yourself on TV. It always looks like a glitch in the programming. Like, hey, that's me on TV. You know what I mean? What happened? You know what I mean? It never feels tangible or real or something like that. And when you have people, I think, at the same time saying, your music does all these things for me, and it always feels like, for me, it's like, how can that be? It's me writing. I wish I was, the Zeppelin. I wish I was the Rolling Stones. I wish I was the Beatles. I wish I was Elton John or whoever. But I've never felt like I am at that level. So I think that's part of the way I feel about it, is that there's other bands that I think that when I hold my music up to them, that I can't compare. And so I kind of go, well, if you like my music, then you'd probably love this. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting. But I think it's just because it's your, it's my own stuff, and it's stuff that I've written, and it's hard to give it credence because I wrote it,
I can only imagine how that would be a strange thing to think about. But, it's definitely true, and there are tons of people who can offer up stories as proof of that. And keeping all of that in mind, is there anything that you want to say to the people who've been posting on the message board for the past decade or so, just people who definitely consider themselves to be a Fuelie, like one of your hardcore fans?
Thank you, a million times over, because you inspired me to keep going, and, and thank you for helping us keep everything going. It's fantastic. So I thank you. It's great. I think part of it is funny with Torn because he's coming in fresh to all this, and Torn will be like, "Dude, do you see how many hits were on the message board? Or do you see how many hits were on this?" And you kind of go, "Yeah," and you kind of get like, "Yeah, well, that's kind of how it is." But then you kind of go, oh, right, it's not how it is. It's what has happened, and it's because of, they've kept it going, and the people on the Fuelie's boards have kept it going, and, we've tried to give back what we can that makes that work. So it's fantastic,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you right now, and I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day off and sitting here and talking to me about all this stuff.
That's great. No problems. I'm sorry we didn't connect earlier. I know we tried to get it together, but we didn't make it happen, so thanks for being patient.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, if you wait long enough, right? How long has it been that I've been a fan? This is, you wait 10 years and then one more day or whatever. It's fine.
Oh, that's great. Appreciate it. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, no problem.